Hello. Today I wanted to address a response to my video, The Big Secret, by someone who said that they felt like Paul's major problem was with the unbelieving Jews. And I have to agree 100%. It was the unbelieving Jews and even some of the believing Jews that was causing Paul most of his problem in the synagogues because they didn't understand his teachings. They felt like many Christians do today that Paul was saying that the law was no longer necessary and that circumcision was no longer necessary. And so, of course, they rebelled. And I often wonder, why did God choose Paul to be the emissary to the Gentiles? Because he was a Pharisaic rabbi. It seemed like he could probably minister to his own people much better. But then again, also, Jesus said that a prophet is not accepted in his own land. So that may have been the principle. But in any respect, Paul was chosen to be an apostle to the Gentiles, where the disciples were chosen to be apostles to the Jews. Now, there is a difference between a disciple and an apostle. A disciple is someone who spent his time sitting under Jesus' teaching, spent time living with Jesus, traveling with Jesus. He knew him intimately. Paul was not one of those people. There's no record in the Bible that he ever even came across Jesus in any of his travels. So we have to assume that he did not know Jesus at all. He got his teachings from revelations and from visions in the desert after his conversion experience. And it was some time before he ever went to the disciples to make himself available for the ministry. So we have to take that into consideration. So Paul was an apostle to the Gentiles. That was his job, was to minister to the Gentiles and not to the Jews. And he had many, many problems. We know, I think it was in Derby, that he finally separated the Gentiles from the Jews. But that's even a problem today. The first time I went to Israel back in the 80s, I flew over Italy, and I was listening to the radio on the airplane. And the announcer came on with a story about an uproar that had taken place in a Messianic synagogue in Italy. I think it was in Rome. Anyway, they had come together to have a communal dinner, and the non-Jews brought dog meat. Well, that upset the Jews, of course, because dog is not a kosher animal. So this uproar broke out, and the synagogue was splitting. The Jews were separating themselves from the Gentiles because they didn't want to sit in the presence of somebody eating unkosher meat. And we find that was a problem that happened back in Paul's day, and it's happening 2,000 years later, even today. And we're going to have these problems when you have Jews and non-Jews worshiping together, because these non-Jews will bring in the things that they have learned and try to incorporate them into the synagogue. And the synagogue is already set up under its own tradition and culture, and it doesn't afford itself well to having these non-Jewish things brought into it. I've been in a couple of synagogues where this has always been a problem. New Christians coming in, wanting to find out about Messianic Judaism, invariably tried to bring in their Christian teachings into the Messianic synagogue, and it just did not work. It was constant fighting. And that's why I finally left the Messianic synagogues and I went to a Reform synagogue. And they thought they had problems with it, but they didn't have any problems compared to what the Messianic synagogues have with it today. The other point that he brought up in his response was that the term Messianic rabbi is an oxymoron. It may seem to be so, but actually Messianic rabbi, the term, was even before the time of Jesus. The Pharisees have always been Messianic believers. They believed that a Messiah would come. If you look at your stories in the first part of the New Testament, the Gospels especially, you see that there were Pharisees, there was a man and there was a woman who waited at the temple continually for the Messiah to show up. Well, these were not Christians, they were Jews. And there's always been a principle in Judaism of Messiah. And even today, we talk about Messiah in the synagogue. But you have to understand that the Jews were not expecting a suffering Messiah. They had suffered plenty over the last 4,000 years, so why would they want a suffering Messiah? They were expecting the Messiah, son of David, the King Messiah. Well, the problem today is that Christians have already proclaimed Jesus to be the King Messiah, and he has not come in that aspect yet. He came as the suffering Messiah, Messiah, son of Joseph. He has not come as the King Messiah, but yet people have already proclaimed him to be that. And that presents a real problem because, as rabbis like Tovia Singer says, he has not fulfilled any of the 20 things that the King Messiah is supposed to do. And it's true, I have to agree with him. He did not, because he didn't come in that aspect. He came as the suffering Messiah for sin, not to relieve the world of all the overbearing monarchs that are here, or to set up a kingdom. He was even asked, are you going to set up a kingdom? And he said, my kingdom is not of this world. He wasn't here in that aspect, so we can't proclaim him that ahead of time. And even the Jews are open-minded about it. Rabbis such as Shmuley Botak has said, if Messiah comes and it's Jesus, we will accept him. They're just waiting. We're just waiting for the King Messiah to come. The suffering Messiah has come. The King Messiah is yet to come. And when you look at the book of Revelation, you're going to find that even though Christians say that the coming Messiah is, the King Messiah is Jesus, it portrays a character much, much different from the Jesus that we learn about in the Gospels. Instead of being a kind, gentle, loving, understanding, forgiving individual, the King Messiah is going to be one who rules with an iron rod. If people do not do what he tells them to, he's going to punish them. And it says that there will even be famine from the lack of rain in lands that do not submit to his authority. So we have to really wait until we get to that point to make sure exactly who this King Messiah is. If it's Jesus, that's wonderful and great, but it's not going to be the same one that we know about right now. And we need to prepare for that. And we need to understand that he's going to make all nations submit to his law, to the law of God, to the law of Moses. Just like Sharia law, it's going to be Mosaic law when King Messiah comes. And the best thing that we can do is to start studying and adhering to the Mosaic law now, so that when he does come, we'll be all ready for him. Have a good day.